section. So on the other side, there's actually a guy that's doing some wagon wheel work and things like that. So there's a little bit of this transportation stuff. And if we walked across the bridge and got to the other side, roughly where First Avenue is today, the opposite side of the show station, back with the ice cream place, we would encounter a huge stable there in the 1880s. And this was a fellow that decided that horse-drawn trolleys were the be-all end-all of transportation technology. And so he built this huge car barn. He had the stables already up there, had bought the horses. He'd ordered these really fabulous-looking cars and everything else. And so he was ready to start this brand new service. And 1889, he takes the first one out for a test drive, hooks the horses out, and he's laid track out, a very small amount of track. He's laid track out the road. So he goes out to make sure everything's working so that they can open the system very, very shortly afterwards. And the day that he takes the horses out for his test drive, this company called the Consolidated Street Railway and Lighting Company says, we're thinking about doing electric streetcars in Vancouver. We've just inked a deal with the City of Vancouver. We're going to give them street lights on the streets of Vancouver because they'll give us permission to put our tracks on the street. This guy never ran his service. He folded his head and said, I'm out of here, because he knew that electric streetcars he couldn't compete. And so that was the site of a brief but failed transportation experiment for the city. So again, hay, beef, grain, all of that type of thing. Here, over the mouth of the creek, on the other side, we had the city market, which was replacing the market that used to be where basically the Carnegie Center is today. The Carnegie Center was actually built on the livestock farms because the city owned it, and they thought, well, we need a library, so we'll just move the livestock. And then City Hall was next door, and that had been the public market for many, many years. It was getting a little too crowded at that end, and so the new market was built over here. It wasn't a financial success because, quote, it was too far out of town. And also the fees charged and various other things. But it had this massive wharf out the back, and it also did feed and grain. And then next to that, with all the building supply companies, Champion and White and various other firms, all did building supplies over there. And so much of the suburbs of Vancouver, Mount Pleasant and Kerrisdale, all got built with materials that left the wharfs there. And really the only legacy of that whole sort of thing is the cement plant on Granville Island. That's sort of the last of that sort of building industry stuff that we found all along the creek. Now, of course, if we were standing here on the edge of our wharf and looking out over Falls Creek here, our view would be quite unobstructed. The Bascule Bridge that eventually replaced the rather crude log bridge, then the later sort of timber bridge, they got really serious in 1908 or 9, I think, a little earlier than that. They built this Bascule Bridge. The Bascule Bridge is one with a huge weight at the end, and so it cantilevers and goes up. And it was built in anticipation of the eastern end of the creek becoming that new big shipping area. So it was meant to get big ships through the creek. I think it went up twice or 3 times. It never really got used a lot. And so we had the new Bascule Bridge there, so that's out of our view, and we have an unobstructed view down the creek, but we wouldn't see much because there were 15 sawmills on the creek. And so in our view here, just where the glass pavilion for the casino and the former BC Pavilion is, we had Bay Forest Products very early there. They were the last sawmill to leave in 1981. And then right up the side of the creek that way, but on this side, it was the King and Jardine Mill, one massive mill straight through there, followed by a couple of other mills, an asphalt plant back this way, and then sawmills and various wood operations all the way down to the edge to where Gerard Street Bridge is. So you couldn't see, you couldn't breathe, and everyone who lived this side of the city was always advised never to hang the laundry outside, because it usually came back healthier than it went out, because the amount of dirt, smoke, and smuts, even though they had some beehive burners and things with the screens, the amount of sort of stuff that flew through the air, it was incredible. So Vancouver as a natural place, very recent invention. Back in even in the 30s and 40s, you know, we had fog recently. That's nothing. That's mist. You add the sawdust, you know, the soot and all of that with the mist, you got fogs that you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you. And that was one of the biggest problems with BC Electric, was on those very heavy, foggy days. They actually had to have someone walk in front of the streetcar to make sure nothing was in its way as it traveled through, waving a big red light. Anyway, this way.